Hello and welcome back to SpriteGuard Plays HyperRogue. Today we're going to head back out into the world of HyperRogue, go on another Hyperstone quest, see if we can accomplish any of the things that we have not been able to accomplish so far. The main one of those being the whirlpool, but I would also really like to conquer the challenge that we failed in the last really good run that we had, where we got the Hyperstones, and then we wanted to get into Camelot after that. And that is something that I would like to attempt again, because that is, I think, a pretty sound strategy, and it's just something that I need to be a little bit less greedy with the Hyperstones. Now, we are going to face a really big challenge in that last time I checked, only 2 people had ever gotten Hyperstones in this version of the game. One of them was actually the person who I expected would be first, Trichothahedron, and I believe their run took several hours. The other person who got them is Whirlpool, who had the under 8-minute speed run and an under 9-minute video run, and just is an overall very impressive player. And so I'm not surprised that either of those 2 people have done it. I am kind of surprised that Whirlpool did it in 30 minutes, but this is the person who managed to speedrun the whole game in under 8 minutes in this version, which I did not think was possible. And it makes sense, because the ocean is actually fairly easy to speedrun, and so being able to skip another area in the mid-game is really valuable, and I don't know which one Whirlpool skipped, because I have not seen a video of that. So we're going into the jungle, and kind of the reason that I went into the jungle so early is because I find the early game of this game a little bit dull. And I realized that part of the reason for that is just because I don't go into the jungle because I'm afraid of it. But I know that I can take on the jungle. I know that it's something that I am capable of getting through. And I know that it's a lot more interesting than just sweeping through the desert and living cave really quickly. So we're going to be taking some risks. We're going to be doing things in a way that is a little bit more exciting. Now, I actually see, yes, I see an exit over there. I see some treasures off to our left. I actually wanted to show you, because I did not realize this until I discovered it accidentally. I mentioned in a previous video that holding Alt in the jungle is very helpful. And what I actually found out is that, let's see, I believe in, yes, if you go into monster display mode, so high contrast is one of the options there. So we can turn on high contrast, and I don't have to just hold down ALT the whole time that we're in the jungle. But I still have to be paying attention. It's very easy for me to lose concentration. I talked about that a little bit in the Proto Shift video that I did for this week, which I do not know yet if that is in your future or your past. But perhaps this can be prophetic, that I talked about my kind of losing concentration in a game, especially when it's a little bit easy and then can get hard really abruptly, just like this game does. And sometimes I lose concentration anyway, especially when I'm talking. And so I managed to pick up an 11th ruby, which was not my intention. So now that we are out of the jungle and not planning on going back, I'm actually going to turn high contrast off, because I find it not the best looking. So we will set that back to items and monsters, and then we will head back into the game. So if, like me, you didn't know that that was an option, now you know. It's much more obviously placed in the settings in the mobile version, where it's just a checkbox in kind of a list of settings rather than being one setting among many. And so I'm glad that I found that, and I kind of wish that it had been easier to find. But there's a lot in this game that is kind of a little bit tucked away, a little bit not obvious. And I'm totally okay with that, because there's so much stuff in this game that is entirely wonderful. And I'm just still head over heels in love with it. I think after 100 hours combined across all 3 versions, I mean, not versions, but between the mobile, the Steam version, and the pre-Steam, the free version, I have at least 100 hours. I don't know how much time I have in the mobile or the free versions, but I am almost certain that it is at least 20 hours. And I would not be surprised if I played for 100 more. And I would play 100 hours, and I would play 100 more, just to be the guy who played 200 hours of HyperRogue. And now you have that song stuck in your head. Or you don't. Maybe you don't know that song. I did not know that song. The first time I heard of that song at all was XKCD did a What If that was about how fast the International Space Station travels. And the analogy that he used, one of the analogies that he used, was that if you were traveling across the surface of the Earth while listening to I'm Gonna Be by the Proclaimers, the first thing that he said was that you would go about 2 miles with every beat, and so you could cross all of Manhattan and the Bronx and almost into Yonkers over the course of a single line of the song. And you could actually, if you were in the ISS and you listened to the song 500 Miles, also called I'm Gonna Be, you would actually have traveled almost exactly 1,000 miles by the time the song ended. 1,000 miles, of course, because he says, I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the guy who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. And so the total distance covered would be 1,000 miles. And there's actually, I was confused and unable to find that song for a long time on YouTube, because there's a different song called 1,000 Miles that is, the music video is of a woman riding a piano down the street. And so I was somewhat confused by that. We are getting a lot of albatrosses coming down on us, and really all I'm trying to do is make my way to a boat. But I need to get to a boat in such a way that I will not get surrounded by birds while I'm sitting in it waiting for the tide to come in. So we can kind of hop our way from boat to boat as we see them. And what that will allow us to do is kind of have a little bit extra mobility and get a little bit closer to the tide line before it gets to us. And then, of course, once we're on water, we can just move about freely. Now, I was reading some help text somewhere, and I don't remember where because I have kind of the memory of a sieve, which sieves actually have good memories, just not the greatest. That's not true. I'm making stuff up at this point, which is actually something I really like to do, and I haven't done very much, anywhere near as much as I've wanted to in this series, but it's something that I really enjoy. But I am getting very, very pulled far away by tangents, so what was I actually trying to say? I'm not entirely sure. Let's see, memory of a sieve. Oh yes, So I have a memory of reading somewhere that you can push a boat into the water if it's on dry land. But I don't actually... I also feel like I remember, yeah, you can't actually, if you're in a boat on dry land, you cannot move it into the water. And so let's see, this boat cannot go through the sand, but if you sit inside and wait for the tide, you will be able to use it to travel through the ocean. So I don't remember where I actually got that idea, but it's clearly not the case. So we are now looking for a whirlpool, and I'm not seeing any, which makes me wonder if whirlpools are actually gated at some higher level than what we have. Just because we don't seem to be spawning any. But we have confirmed here that at most we need 40 treasures to get to the Caribbean now, whereas in the past it was 60. And so we are able to get in here. We can go for pirate treasure. Ah, there's a whirlpool. So not gated or anything, just wasn't spawning for whatever reason. And now we can see a bunch of them. So I had a run off camera not too long ago, I think yesterday when I'm recording this, in which I managed to climb almost all the way out of the whirlpool. And I was able to, basically by luring pirates down, I was able to jump from boat to boat and get all the way to the edge of the whirlpool. And then the pirate that I was going to use to get me out of the whirlpool ended up actually going into the whirlpool before I could reach him, and ended up trapping me against a shark, I think. And I ended up losing that run. So let's see if we can do better this time. I'm going to, of course, be going very carefully, because it seems like the consensus is pretty well that the whirlpool is the most dangerous area in the game right now. So I don't know actually how deep we need to go in order to start seeing pearls, but I see one down here. And I'm not paying maybe as much attention to monsters as I should be. But we did okay. Now, this is not quite ideal, but we can actually get out here, and then, because we're on an inner groove, we can actually get out to that pearl. And then this one, let's see. Okay, so we're actually seeing them a bit further out than we are, which is, let's see. I think if we, no, we can't go up to him. So, he can't, the pirate to our right can't get to it. Oh, yes he can. He must have been outward from us rather than clockwise from us. But we can get out that way. And then us being on an inner groove, we can get out there. And then this one. And then here we can actually get that pearl. And then we have another one coming around to us. And that's 4. So we're going to be putting in quite a bit of work to get all of these. And then what we need to do is we need to go deeper and hope that we can find an orb of safety before we get completely trapped. And so I want to, as much as possible, try and use boats, but this is a pattern that I've actually noticed really frequently, is that you will have a gap of one current circle, or horocycle, where boats just don't come down. And I'm not sure if that was intentionally put there to prevent people from climbing out. I know that you can still climb out by luring pirates, but I wonder if it was to make it much harder to climb out, and so require that people actually use the orb of safety instead. Which kind of makes sense, because thematically you want the whirlpool to be something that you can't get out of. So we're kind of in an awkward position here, and I want to, there we go. Wanted to really set the kind of the terms on which I would run into that shark. And unfortunately, that pirate's boat got moved away when we attacked the pirate. So here comes another shark. And now we are going to, let's see, we have, it looks, here's a pirate. So we can catch up with his boat and then jump out a row. And then this should let us jump out a bit. And then we just need to catch up. Wrong turn. Okay. So we're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. This actually may be game over. Let's see. We can move to that boat. Now, let's see. The pirates can not get to us from here, I think. But they can get to us by jumping from boat to boat. But that shark, luckily, can't quite get to us in time to give us trouble. And then once again, we want to set the terms of engagement with that pirate. So it looks like we can go counterclockwise as long as we go inward at the same time, which is useful, but not especially useful, because going counterclockwise isn't actually really, there's nothing to get to counterclockwise. It will all come to us eventually. And so there's much less incentive to go counterclockwise compared to the very strong incentive to go outward, because that is where we are going to actually find our way out of... We're actually done gathering pearls. I didn't even notice that we were there already. So my plan now, and I'm not sure if it's a good plan, is to just basically dive straight down. And that way I hope to generate as many boats as I can in the hopes that we'll be able to get to one that contains an orb of safety. But that is going to be problematic because we're going to be running into a lot of monsters along the way. A lot of pirates and a lot of sharks. Now, boats actually block the progress of sharks. And so we can try and use some boats to block off that shark. But we have another shark coming from a really bad angle. And these pirates are actually, because they're on an inner groove from us, they're going to get to us kind of in a bad order. So once again, this could easily be game over. Now I see to our right there is actually an orb of safety, and I think I see a route to it, but I'm not sure. No, that's game over. So the whirlpool continues to be incredibly daunting, and we're going to need to figure out how to approach it, and I'm just not sure yet. But we got very close. We got 11 pearls, which was probably a mistake. And we got within sight of an orb of safety, at least. And so, really, just a little bit more careful. I did notice there was actually a point where I kind of thought to myself, well, I'm not really managing combat as much as I need to. And that was a problem I had in the Mirrored Land as well. And also in the Caribbean. I would lose a lot because I was not taking care of combat early on enough. I was kind of allowing a lot of monsters to spawn and kind of thinking, oh, I'll deal with them later. And that doesn't work a lot of times, especially in really restricted environments like this. So that is going to continue to be the big goal that we're going to be trying to conquer. And it's just kind of a matter of long time learning and practicing and trying over and over, and there will always be more opportunities. So thank you very much for watching. and have a great rest of your day.